People say don't judge a book by its cover, but we all do. First impressions can be everything. When countless things are competing for our attention, a split second may be all your book gets, and that's what makes the cover artwork critical. So what separates an effective design from an off-putting one? How do you communicate the genre of your book to a reader, and how much does commissioning a cover cost? Let's find out. Tambi's here to provide her opinion as well, but she's sitting directly behind me. You can think of a book cover like it's a movie trailer. Along with a summary on the back, the artwork is advertising who the work might appeal to. You could deceive people and misrepresent your story, but that can lead to backlash and confusion. They might be expecting one thing and then be disappointed if they don't get it. In the same way that advertising an emotional drama as a horror movie would frustrate audiences. Since my book is fantasy, I'm going to be focusing on covers in that genre, but these general concepts will apply across niches. What makes for effective book art? How subjective is it? Since we all have a different taste in things, let's focus on some of the general elements in a cover. To do so, let's turn to professional advice. This article on MIBL Art provides a great overview. There are 3 general elements of a cover: typography, color scheme, and imagery. Typography is the font and text used on the cover. What I love about this article is it gets very specific. Serif, Gothic, Baskerville, or Trajan-inspired typefaces are excellent choices for capturing the right aesthetic and appealing to your target audience. Right off the bat, that gives us 4 fonts to play around with. The size, color, and styling are also critical. Experimenting with capitalization is another way to influence the appearance. You want the text to be easy to read and catch a browser's attention. There's even a separate guide all about fonts. Color schemes are important because they're a great way to clue in a reader on the genre of the book. Since fantasy revolves around the supernatural and unreal, designers often use bold, saturated colors to enhance the genre's immersive feel. There's also plenty of room to go the opposite direction, like with this book, which has much more of a monochromatic cover. To me at least, it's still very eye-catching and there's some subtle design. You'll notice that the author's name is a different color than the title of the book. Much like how this article was helpful with fonts, it provides a neat guide on colors. Blue evokes consciousness, faith, and truth. Purple is associated with mystery and the unknown. Red signifies courage, passion, or danger. Green represents renewal, balance, and nature. Obviously, these aren't hard and fast rules, so if you want to learn more about color theory, again, they have a helpful article. Imagery is the last element of a cover. In the example I provided, A Dance with Dragons, the imagery is the shield with a dragon on it. Imagery plays a crucial role in setting the tone and attracting the right readers. A well-crafted cover not only hints at the story, but also signals the subgenre at a glance. With fantasy, common imagery is magic and supernatural powers, mystical creatures and beings, enchanted artifacts and symbols, like this. Quick Tambi check-in. Aww. This guide then gets into how to communicate subgenre. For urban fantasy, modern cityscapes with neon lights, hidden alleyways, or mystical symbols subtly woven into the skyline. High fantasy, majestic castles, enchanted forests, ancient ruins, or sprawling mountain landscapes that transport readers to another world. Paranormal fantasy, glowing auras, magical tattoos, supernatural energy, or dark, enigmatic figures exuding power and mystery. Dark fantasy, Gothic cathedrals, stormy skies, eerie graveyards, blood-red moons, or shadowy figures lurking in the mist. Quick side note, I made this mistake in my early query letters. Dark fantasy does not mean grimdark. Dark fantasy means it's blended with elements of horror. Epic fantasy, warriors in armor, grand battle scenes, intricate maps, or legendary artifacts like swords, crowns, and enchanted relics. Now that we've been introduced to the 3 major elements of a cover, another thing to consider is the depiction. Will it be illustrated or photorealistic? Illustrated covers are typical for high fantasy and epic fantasy, while photorealistic covers are popular for urban fantasy, paranormal romance, and dark fantasy. As always, feel free to challenge these expectations, but once we get into some examples, I think you'll see why these trends exist. Another choice to make is whether it focuses on characters or objects. Character-based covers are a great choice for fantasy romance, heroic fantasy, and stories with strong character-driven plots. Object-based covers work well for high fantasy, dark fantasy, and literary fantasy. Now the fun part, let's get into some examples. Within urban fantasy, we have Burning Hammer, which I guess is quite literal. The hammer of the revolver is on fire. This is an object-based cover. You have some mystical designs. The dragon on the revolver is especially effective at tying in the fantasy theme. I'm not seeing much that signifies that this is urban. A revolver is not necessarily new technology, but I find the shining metal typography very effective. The Laughing Dead is another object-based cover. We've got this teddy bear, but we also have an old video game console in the back. Clearly this is set in a modern world with supernatural elements. The font used is simple, but it has a bit of that fantasy element and really pops with this design. Here's a character-based one. You've got a sultry pyromancer with a neon city in the background and a blood red moon. This one ticks a lot of the boxes mentioned earlier. I don't personally find this one that compelling, but I do think it speaks to a certain audience. Here are some young adult selections. The title of this is amazing, and I love the design. The only thing I don't like is the witch. Something about her face doesn't mesh with the rest of it for me, but that's just like my opinion, man. This is a subtle one done right. If you look quickly, you may not even see this spirit or ghost that's in the background. It's a good example of a purple palette being used to evoke a mysterious vibe. I like the framing and colors of this one. There's some nice imagery. Having the characters be silhouettes is another interesting choice. With paranormal romance, wolves are a common theme. Thanks, Twilight. Due to the fire and ice nature of this artwork, I'm guessing there's going to be some steamy romance. And the typography of the title is a nice flourish. Here we don't see a wolf, but the moon tells us everything we need to know. I normally wouldn't read in this genre, but this one actually has me pretty intrigued. And this one has a lot going on. We've got some kind of undead woman, a blood red moon, and a giant wolf. The gold of the typeface really helps it stand out despite being so slender. I'd pass on this one personally, but the cover is eye-catching. Now let's get into sci-fi fantasy. I'm all about this imagery. The crossbow juxtaposed with a cityscape and a flaming circle. I want to know what's going on. My only gripe is with the typeface. Is that TUNERS or TJNERS? Tejuners or tuners? This one's a little schlocky, but it tells you exactly what you need to know. You got Sauron's tower over here, you've got magical powers, you've got some artifact gun. That seems to be a real theme with sci-fi fantasy. It's a pretty cool font too. Finally, we're at my subgenre of choice, high and epic fantasy. I think this cover is amazing. The color palette, the imagery, the character design, even the font, everything is working together perfectly. If I saw that in a store, I'd read the back and probably crack it open. I like the gold filigree and imagery of this cover. It's a little on the nose, it's literally a griffin key, but what do these frogs have to do with the story? Personally, I think this one would work better without the gleaming on the title. I don't think it needed it. One of the books I'm using as a comp is this one. I think it has brilliant imagery, the color palette is great, and it evokes an illuminated manuscript kind of vibe. I'm guessing this next one is potentially a portal fantasy. You've got this mysterious hero wandering a treacherous landscape. The stone-like gray is a nice contrast to the blues and greens in this portal. And finally, here's some dark fantasy examples. As mentioned earlier in the article, dark fantasy tends to use photorealistic imagery. Here's a great counterexample. Everything about this illustrated design is beautiful. My only knock is I don't think the title stands out. If it was my choice, I would use a different font. I love the color palette and imagery of this cover. Instantly, I know what mood to expect. The swoopy typography is great, but I'd play with the size and color a bit. I think it's a little hard to read. And finally, we have another photorealistic character-based one. It's a skip for me, but I think it's a siren call for people who love that genre. I went hunting for more covers and found this listopia on Goodreads. Unfortunately, they didn't make it easy to look at the covers. This is a tiny thumbnail. And if I open the image in another page, that doesn't help at all. Clicking to the books page was the only way to do it, and then I have to open it in another tab. That's too many tabs, guys. Also, this was your most popular cover? I'm questioning the scruples of this voting system. Number 2 wasn't any more inspiring. This angel thing going on is fine. I like the gray palette, but this typography is garbage. I had to go all the way down to number 5 before I found something pretty inspired. I have no idea what this book is about, but I want to learn more. I quickly abandoned Listopia and turned to a list of the 20 best covers in fantasy. Unlike the limitations shown on Listopia, these are nice, present images. I love the design of this classic cover. The font is simple and effective. You got some giant eagles in the background, the mountains, a blood red moon. Just all around really good stuff. To me, Harry Potter's an interesting one. I don't really love the general aesthetic, but it's effective at reaching its target audience. It's also immediately communicating a lot about the story. The typography is also iconic. Too bad the author isn't. Those were 2 examples of classic designs. So what's changed in the more modern era? This article points out there's much more of a focus on typography. Nowadays, striking decorative fonts often becomes central to the cover design. These fonts are not only larger, but are also intricately integrated into the overall design. This approach helps books stand out, even at thumbnail size, on digital platforms. In these modern times, that last bit is critical. This is a truly beautiful cover. If I saw that on a shelf, it would stop me dead in my tracks. The color palette, the typography, how it's interwoven with the imagery, everything is top notch. The article loves this design, but compared to the last one, I think it's an example of what not to do. The imagery makes it hard to read the name of the book, and I don't think the color palette is right. I like the design of the snake though. Next up is a truly beautiful one. The design and color scheme is really amazing. It makes me want to know more about this book. This is a much more understated one. If everyone else is loud, sometimes a whisper can get attention too. Personally, I'm not blown away by this cover, but I do think it's effective. Here's a great example of a book in a genre I wouldn't typically read, but the cover is engaging enough that I might give it a shot. Something about the imagery in combination with the color palette really draws me to it. I'm all about this one. Here's another design that would make me immediately pick up the book. But once again, you don't always have to go big. The framing imagery of this one is very tasteful. I don't really care that much about fairies, but the design is so good I might crack this one open. And this one, I just don't get. I don't see how this is appealing. But again, that comes down to taste. I don't like the tagline, I don't like the overall design, I don't like the color palette. The dragon imagery mixed with the typography is kind of cool, but that's about it for me. What do you think, Tamby? No? Pass for you too? Yeah. Next up, we have a great article that gets into more of the specifics of genre. And because Tamby's getting hungry, I'm going to have to speed this one up. You want some lunch? All right. For adult fantasy, you can use a darker color scheme to remind readers that this isn't a book that you would necessarily read to your kids at night. Imagine evil dark red shadows and mystic green lights. You can go with an authoritative or aged font. This can reinforce the age of the world. A world that's old as dirt deserves a different font than one that has just recently been created. Here's an example of that darker palette with an aged looking font. I think it's very eye-catching. I also noticed that this site offers designs. They have various packages depending on your needs. For an ebook cover with unlimited changes, it's $497. For an ebook and print cover, it's $595, also with unlimited changes. That unlimited changes part is important, just as important as your cover. You're going to want to really fine-tune the design. Don't settle for something that's almost there, especially at this price point. $500 or $600 may seem like a lot, but a good design will generate enough sales to compensate for that. Ebook launch isn't the only place you can commission work. Here's some other options. If you're on a tight budget but don't want to skimp on the design, a pre-made cover may make sense. These cost $99, but you can change all of the text. I'm not sure you can change the font though. Once you buy a cover, it becomes exclusively yours. If you want the ebook and print cover, that costs $178. While browsing the site, I came across some amazing designs. Female Smeagol? Sign me up. This makes me want to write a story about a gender-flipped golem. There's even artwork for a potential sequel. Sorry. Much like ebook launch, that site from the first article, Miblart, offers cover services. For ebook covers, it's $220. Ebook and print is $270. One downside of a collective site like that is it's a bit unclear who's going to be working on your book. Is it by committee? Can you select a specific artist? Who knows? Reedsy Marketplace is a great way to find an artist commissioned directly. You may not have the same security that the company offers in terms of revisions, but you're supporting an independent artist. One downside is you'll probably have to request a quote. The final article I want to touch on is a great resource for those who want to explore all the options available. It goes over doing it yourself, mentions places like Reedsy, Upwork, and Fiverr as places you can go to commission, aggregates the cost of sites like Demonza, JD&J, Miblart, CoverMint, and so on. There's a great graphic at the end showing what to expect with the pricing. So what does this have to do with me? Why am I thinking of a cover now if I've been looking to get traditionally published? In all honesty, I'm pretty disappointed with the querying process. I think I'm at a severe disadvantage because I don't have any references, I haven't published any work, and I wasn't part of an MFA program. I don't think submitting yourself to the slush pile is an effective way to get a foot in the door. I really don't want to spend years trying to find a home for my manuscript when the tools I'd have to use to stand out would also be effective at self-publishing a book. Successfully self-publishing, I think, is the best way for me to attract an agent, if I want to go that route later. And that makes amazing cover art all the more important. So what kind of design might I pick? The title of my book is The Witch's Weave. So I've been visualizing the gnarled hands of a hag. The fate of my characters is literally woven into a tapestry. So I think having them represented in yarn between these hags' hands might be an effective cover. I'll keep you posted on any mock-ups, and I hope all you authors out there trying to find cover art now feel like you have all the resources you need.